Saturn, as seen from Earth through an optical telescope. No NASA CGI composites or artist's impressions here. This is what it actually looks like. Many happy returns is a quaint way of wishing somebody a happy birthday. What it means is many happy solar returns. This is a reference to the sun returning to the same point in the sky relative to the fixed backdrop of stars as it occupied the day of your birth. A period lasting, of course, 1 year. Other bodies moving about in the heavens take different periods of time to return in the same fashion. Saturn takes a little over 29 years to transit the complete zodiac, and approximately 3 years to transit the constellation it was in at the time of your birth. This means that for approximately 3 years between the age of 27 to 31, you will experience something called the Saturn Return, which can be thought of as a cosmic coming-of-age ceremony, an exhaustive decluttering, streamlining and repurposing process, and for those of us found to be far from our life's purpose at this time, a period of potentially monumental upheaval as the gravitational pull of this cosmic giant bends us to its will. Robert Johnson, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and others too numerous to mention, the famous 27 Club. All great artists who died during their 27th year of life. A coincidence, of course. At the age of 27, I thought I knew who I was. I'd had the same job for ages, lived in the same flat since leaving mum and dad's, I had loads of friends, I knew what life was all about. It was something to do with motorcycles and getting laid as often as possible. I took my health for granted, although I did acknowledge with some gratitude that I seemed to have an almost bulletproof constitution and unfathomable luck in situations that would have most people running for cover. I had no idea that the movements of a planet said by astronomers to be orbiting the Sun at a distance 9 to 10 times greater than that of the Earth was about to rearrange my life. In astrology, the natal chart is a snapshot of the heavens at the exact moment of your birth. It is like a metaphysical blueprint of a newly incarnated soul. In my chart, the fast-moving moon is conjunct slow-moving Saturn in Scorpio. When Saturn transits the natal moon, we call it the dark night of the soul. In one sense, I am grateful that I experienced both these cosmic shitstorms at the same time. Saturn left Libra for Scorpio in October 2012, but I'd felt its approach almost a year in advance. Towards the end of 2011, I was using and abusing personal relationships and allowing myself to be used at the same time. I became alienated and isolated from almost all my friends. By 2013, I was falling out with colleagues over nothing. Old patterns were already being broken down, often against my will. I distinctly recall being aware that my life as I had known it was falling apart, but feeling powerless to stop it. I also felt like this was something I had signed up for and that it was a necessary part of life. This was the destruction of my old identity. I became very ill at this time with what doctors called psoriasis, and I was using medication to suppress the symptoms. I was desperate to quit smoking. I pushed away anyone who tried to help me. This was the lowest point of my life. By the end of 2014, things were looking up. At midnight on Christmas Eve, Saturn left Scorpio for Sagittarius, and I began 2015 with a feeling of optimism and a sense of lightness. Around this time I quit drinking and smoking and started cycling almost daily. I was vegetarian and well on my way to a 100% plant-based diet. Psoriasis was barely a consideration now, and I was off the medication for good. I had taken control of the process. I had assumed responsibility for the first time in my life for both my physical and mental well-being. It was at this time I was introduced to astrology, and almost immediately I became aware of the Saturn return. that process I had unknowingly been undergoing with such a massive impact on my life. Everything suddenly made sense. I was born again. But I knew that Saturn was due to retrograde back into Scorpio later that year. The test was not over. 2015 was honestly the most beautiful and uplifting period of my life thus far. With my natal Saturn in Scorpio, I was being tested on Scorpio things, particularly sex and the way I'd used and abused it. Seeing as abstinence had become such a big part of my life at this time, I decided to add sex to that list as well. Porn and masturbation too. I let go of these things and became as a child once more, innocent and free of my lower nature. In June of 2015, Saturn retrograded back into Scorpio and I was tested. 3 times ex-lovers contacted me and I turned each of them down. My focus for the entire summer of 2015 was making it to September 17th, the day Saturn would leave Scorpio and spend another 27 years transiting the other 11 signs of the zodiac. The thing you have to know about Saturn is that although he is a fearful taskmaster, he is doing it with our best interests at heart. It is said that he leaves gifts as he leaves the house. I don't know how, but I knew that my gift would be a healthy, happy sexual relationship. That thing which had eluded me since my teenage years. In fact, I think I asked for this, and Saturn nodded. Two days before he left Scorpio, I was introduced to a girl. She became my girlfriend, and for a little over 1 year, I experienced the deepest and most intense period of healing I've ever known. Looking back, it was incredible. The things I wrote in my journal at this time are barely believable now. I was able to completely focus on this one other being as the object of my love and the source of my healing. I was completely clean, loving life, and even wound up living in a house full of vegans surrounded by happy, positive people. Somehow I had become one of those happy, positive people. What the hell happened? Saturn's influence had changed me permanently, but it had not fixed me. On the contrary, it had exposed just how fragile this boy really was. Even with all this newfound light, I could not tear myself away from the darkness I could still sense in the corners of my mind. By the end of 2016, my obsession with healing my immune system and skin through diet had intensified. My relationship fell apart as my libido completely disappeared, and I could not even bear to be touched anymore. One intense patch of bad skin returned with a vengeance on the side of my left calf and remains there to this day. A reminder that there is still work to be done, balancing myself, healing my relationship with sex and with my own feminine side. It was at this time I met a group of people from all over the country known as the Tribe who blew my mind wide open to whole new realms of possibility. As one door closes, another is opened. That spring equinox gathering literally changed the direction of my life. The secret project I'd begun alone in the local wood just weeks prior, my way of attempting to provide my now departed former lover with her dream of her own semi-subterranean eco-house, became my solo mission and ultimately my home.